everybody, I am still in Boston. I am going to be leaving soon. Before I go, I'm going to stop over at MIT and learn about some artificial intelligence, another cool technology, so hopefully I'll have a really fun video for tomorrow. Then I'm going to be heading to New York and then flying to Los Angeles, so if you're in LA, hit me up. But this video I want to make because I want to talk about why I may not be covering these political, factional events, whatever you want to call it, anymore. First, let me say, most of my coverage is international, from Brazil, Venezuela, Ukraine, Egypt, Sweden, France, Greece. I tend to go to big international stories. I'm looking for stories that shape the global conversation and are affecting how our culture and our world works. Sometimes that's domestic, Ferguson, Baltimore, Occupy Wall Street, and usually it's international. So these events, like the free speech rallies, to me, are not the most pressing issues I could be covering. Now, the reason I came down to Boston was because I'm waiting for some equipment in the mail, and I figured it's 4 hours to drive here from New York. I'll come check out the event, make a video. I know that there's a lot of people who are interested in what's happening here. I would absolutely have no problem coming to these events and covering them as I have in the past. But I think the important thing that people need to realize is that it's coming to a point where too many people amongst the political factions in this country know who I am. So let me say this. On the Antifa side, I get death threats. They post lies about me. They make up crazy stories, accuse me of being a Fed. I've been forced to flee. I told you the story about Venezuela. I was forced to flee Venezuela because some of these activists thought it would be funny to convince people in Venezuela that I was a spy. And that could result in my death or imprisonment. And that's fucked up shit. However, on the other side, let me say this. This is a little different because I really do appreciate everyone who watches, and I could not do this if there wasn't someone on the other side of this camera who actually cared about who I was and what I was doing. So this is not the worst thing in the world, by no means. So again, I seriously appreciate everybody who subscribes and watches, and I meet a lot of really cool people who approach me, and awesome, you guys rock. A lot of people make donations and give me high fives and shake my hand, and all of that is awesome. That's the kind of stuff that makes me feel like I'm actually doing something important, and that as long as one person will come up to me and say, dude, keep doing your thing, it gives me, sort of the motivation to say, you got it, I'll keep doing this. As long as, every time someone says that, it reaffirms that I'm doing something good. And this really does come from the left and the right. It's not simply conservatives or liberals. On the more extreme side of the left, yeah, sure, I get people messing with me. But there is something else to this that becomes problematic. I've had people follow me out of events. I've had people trying to get into Ubers with me. I have had people come into restaurants where I'm eating and just sit across the table staring at me and not doing anything. And while that is, look, it's a public sidewalk, walk wherever you'd like. You can follow me, sure. Don't get in my Uber, that's kind of weird. If you want to come into a restaurant, stare at me, eat, sure, I'm in a public place, I guess you can do that. I've had some people email me my address. It was I shouldn't say some people, I had someone email me my address. I've had some emails that were just weird. And now, the other day, someone snuck up on me and tried to take my hat. Here's the thing. That's not the biggest deal in the world, right? The hat is just about my style. There's no special thing to it. It's just part of my clothes. It's part of my character. I wear the same thing almost every day, and this is part of it. So if you see me outside my house, I won't be wearing it. You'll see me wearing shorts, like riding my bike down the street, and you probably won't recognize me. And that's kind of a good thing for me. But the reason I am particularly upset about what happened yesterday with this guy sneaking up and then, grabbing my hat off my head is that I have a real threat of people threaten me with violence. People send me death threats. And so while this particular instance was benign, I have to consider that at some point it won't be. That if someone really thinks it's funny to come up and compromise my security, be it a tiny, meaningless infraction of taking my hat, I'm going to end up in a situation where someone's going to say, okay, I'll come up and punch him in the back of the head, or, look, you got people in Antifa saying punch a Nazi, and then people up on that hill were calling me a Nazi. It's like on the live stream, they're saying I'm a Nazi sympathizer and that I'm a known alt-right person or whatever. And so there's a very real possibility that someone is going to sneak up on me and hit me. So I have sort of danced around the issue of security for a long time. I have been physically assaulted several times while covering events. most notably during Occupy Wall Street. But here's the thing. These instances were non-targeted in a sense. These were people that went to a protest and saw me and said, I don't like that guy, and got up in my face and hit me. But yesterday, the guy who came up and snuck up behind me had been repeatedly tweeting at me, had planned the prank or whatever, and then sought me out and snuck me up and did this. And that says to me that while I don't know if escalation is probable or likely, there it is. I'm at the point where people feel welcome to come up and put their hands on me. People know who I am. Somebody came. I've got to worry now on both sides. Is someone on the rally side, or are they going to think it's funny to come over and fuck with me? Are people on the left going to think it's okay to go punch me in the face or get up in my face? Long story short, look, there just comes a point where if you're too well known, people are going to come up to you, and I recognize that. And I'm grateful for all the awesome people who tell me how much they appreciate my work. But I also have to recognize now that I may be crossing that line to a point where the crazies are going to start getting physical with me, and that's a serious threat. So I've had people tell me to hire security, and first of all, I don't want to hire security. I don't want a security guard following me around. It just becomes really weird and disconnected when you see these news reporters walking around with a security detail. It's like they're not even a part of society. It's just this weird removed thing. The other thing is, I can't afford security, right? So my Patreon, there are about 570 plus people who are supporting me. You guys rock. And that money is used for travel and equipment and food. I have regular expenses that I have to take care of. YouTube ad revenue does not cut it. Super Chat really does help. When I do these live streams, I can make a decent amount of money in a single day. That really does help cover the cost of these events. International flights can range from $300 to $1,000 one way. So here's the other thing. If I want to come to a lower level domestic event where, you know, some right-wing conservatives and free speech advocates are going to confront Antifa, I'll need to hire security to make sure that Antifa doesn't get in my face and that other people who think it's funny to fuck with me don't get in my face and don't fuck with me. But that's expensive. And not only that, coming to Boston was really expensive. The hotels here are insane. I was really lucky to get this hotel for less than $200. When I go to international stories, yes, I've had some people sometimes in foreign countries come up to me and talk to me, and it's fine. But most people don't know who I am when I'm in France. I can mind my own business and just do my thing without being bothered. That was relatively true for Sweden until the press picked everything up. But I can go to Greece and be left alone. I can go to most places for large international breaking news stories and be left alone. And that is important. I don't want to go to these events and be a spectacle and be a subject. I don't want to be part of these events. I don't want to influence them, but that's certainly what's going to happen when people are like, oh my God, I know who you are. So let me just wrap this up without being as, like, I don't want to come off like whiny, you know. I'm trying to be like very grateful for the success I've had and everything that's working, but the main issues are that at the core of notoriety and coming to these events is that I become too much of a subject in the event itself, with people pointing me out and diverting their attention from what the event is supposed to be, instead hey, it's Tim Pool. And that's with the Antifa being like, fuck Tim Pool, and that's with the right being like, hey, yo, go Tim Pool, and yelling and hollering. And so that makes me a subject, and then what ends up happening is it starts to get to a point where instead of seeing the window into this event, you're seeing people like come up to my camera and say, hey, Tim Pool, right? So it's less about the event, and then people are actually coming up and addressing me. Then you have the issue of death threats from, you know, people in Antifa, and weird lies made up about me, and the threat of real danger. And then I have the stalkerish kind of people who is a very small group. It's not certainly a lot of people. And I still really don't mean to be mean to the stalkery kind of people either, because I understand it's just people like what I do. But trying to get into my Uber or sneaking up behind me and put your hands on me, that crosses a line, and that means it's likely to keep happening. And I guess, finally, with these events just being not the most important for you and not the most important for me, I don't need to take unnecessary risks and unnecessary expenses to go and cover these events. So if big breaking news stories happen, I'll definitely cover them. Something like Ferguson happens, sure, I'll be there. I'm not going to, never cover things domestically. But when it comes to these rallies that are, organized protests with factional, factional fighting, I'm probably going to hang back and not go to these anymore. So let me just say, final thought. I feel like a line was crossed the other day where someone thought it was okay to come up from behind me and put their hands on me. And that's the final grain of sand that makes a heap. And that's when I say, okay, I shouldn't come to these events anymore. I have no recourse for that. I can't do anything about that. People can come up to me, they know who I am, they can get physical, and there's literally nothing I can do. That's it. So it's best if I don't go to events where most people know who I am. Let me know what you think. Comment below, click the like button. I guess we'll have a discussion, but look, I think everyone's going to be more excited to see me going to Korea and talking about the real threat of war, or going back to Europe and exploring issues, say, in Italy. Looking at what Lauren Southern is doing is significantly, while I'm not going to condemn or condone the activism, the actions she's taking, the issue itself of these NGO boats in the Mediterranean are significantly more important than me going to some event and having people mess with me. I just don't want to be producing content that's more dramatic reality TV. I want to go do some real impactful shit. So that's what I'm going to try and do. If you like my videos, feel free to subscribe. And like I said before, click the like button. You can find me on Twitter @TimCast. I'll have another video for you tomorrow at 6 p.m., probably about robots and stuff. So forgive me for swearing as much as I did in this video, because I usually don't, but I appreciate everybody who watched, and I will see you all tomorrow.